Everybody, today Honey is going to continue reading Wayside School Beneath the Cloud of Doom, written by Louis Shacker and illustrated by Tim Houch. Chapter 6 Optostosis. Eric Evans wasn't the only one who had noticed that Kathy had become nice. Others, too, began to notice her odd behavior. I like your picture, Kathy told Bibi. What's wrong with it? Bibi asked. Nothing, said Kathy. You're each perfect. You're very talented. It took Bibi a moment to realize that Kathy hadn't insulted her. Mrs. Jules also noticed the change. Kathy, will you come here, please? She asked. Kathy approached her teacher's desk. Yes, Mrs. Jules, she asked. Mrs. Jules smiled. You have been doing very well, Kathy, she said. I've noticed a real improvement in your work and in your attitude. That must be because you're such a good teacher, said Kathy. Well, thank you, said Mrs. Jules, but there is a tiny little problem. I'm having a hard time reading your homework. What do you mean? Look at it, said Mrs. Jules, showing Kathy her most recent homework assignment. What's wrong with it? Asked Kathy. First thing we learned in Fayaka school, Dr. Pickle said as he patted DJ on the head. My hiccups are all gone, DJ told Kathy. Who cares? Kathy grumbled. Would you mind stepping inside my office, young lady? Asked Dr. Pickle. But he's the sicko, said Kathy, pointing at DJ. Please, said Dr. Pickle. She entered the counselor's office. That beard is really ugly. I guess your face must be even worse, huh? Dr. Pickle didn't get angry. He just stroked his beard and said, Very interesting. Kathy sniffed. Smells like pickles, she commented. Very interesting indeed, the counselor said, and then asked her to sit down. Kathy sat on the couch. Lumpy, she complained. I'm going to try a little experiment, said Dr. Pickle. I'm going to say a word. When I want you to say the first word, and then I want you to say the first word that pops into your head. Stupid, said Kathy. I haven't started yet, said Dr. Pickle. Sloppy, said Kathy. Dr. Pickle realized he had better hurry up and get started. Cold, he began. Hot, Kathy replied. Hard, soft, skinny, fat. This is kind of fun, isn't it, Kathy? Asked Dr. Pickle. No, it's boring, said Kathy. Worse than I thought, said Dr. Pickle. I studied your condition in Fire-Forest school. I'm afraid you have a bad case of oppositosis. No, I don't. You do. Dr. Pickle stroked his beard. Unfortunately, there is no known cure for oppositosis. Other chiropractors have tried to help their patients to learn to be kind and think positively. Dr. Pickle knew that would never work on Kathy. He had been his own theory, however. He could try to turn her opposites into double opposites. He opened his desk drawer and took out the pickle stone and chain. Cassie watched the green stone as it gently swung back and forth. She fell asleep on the count of 5. Can you hear me, Kathy? He asked. I can smell you too, she replied. You're looking into a mirror, he told her. I'm looking into a mirror, Kathy repeated, eyes closed. Tell me what you see. I see a beautiful girl with black hair, she said, and I see a funny-looking man with a pointy beard. Very good, said Dr. Pickle, and I want you to reach out and touch the mirror. Kathy slowly moved her arm, but as you tried to touch it, said Dr. Pickle, you'll discover the mirror isn't solid. Your hand will go right through it. Kathy stuck her hand out further. That's weird, she said. Now stand up and walk through the mirror. Kathy stood up. She took one step, then another. She hesitated for a moment, and then took one last step. Amazing, she exclaimed. You're on the other side of the mirror, said Dr. Pickle. What do you see? Kathy looked around. Nice office, she said. She sniffed. Smells nice too. I'm glad you like it, said Dr. Pickle. Would you like to sit on the couch? Kathy sat back down. Very comfortable, she noted. When I count to three, you'll wake up, but you will still be on the other side of the mirror. 1, 2, 3. Kathy opened her eyes. How do you feel? He asked her. Fine, thanks, said Kathy. How are you? Very well, thank you, said Dr. Pickle. Do you mind if we continue with our little experiment? Sounds like fun, said Kathy. Happy, said Dr. Pickle. Smile, said Kathy. Smart, said Dr. Pickle. Mrs. Jules, said Kathy. Friend, said Dr. Pickle. DJ, said Kathy. Dr. Pickle led her to the door. Thank you, Dr. Pickle, she said, shaking his hand. You are very wise, and I like your beard. What's wrong with my homework? Asked Kathy. It's written backward, said Mrs. Jules. Every sentence, every word, every letter, even the numbers are backward. Looks normal to me, said Kathy. Do you want me to do it over? Mrs. Jules sighed. No, that's all right, Kathy. I'm just happy to see you doing so well. I'll figure it out. Kathy smiled and then returned to her seat. Chapter 7. The Closet That Wasn't There. Mac was a curious kid. When Miss Mush served chicken fingers, he asked her how many fingers a chicken had on each hand. Every lunch, he played basketball besides playing. He was also half self-appointed announcer, describing every shot, every pass, and every dribble. Jenny finally told him to put a sock in it. Only then, when he stopped talking, even Meg remembered that he'd left his catcher's mask on the cafeteria. Meg liked to wear his catcher's mask for all sports, including the basketball. He was a curious kid. The cafeteria was on the 15th floor. Mac found his mask right there where he'd left it, but by then it hardly seemed worth to go all the way back down to the playground, so he counted on up to the 30th story. And there, just outside the classroom door, was the most curious thing Mac had ever seen. Next to the wall was some sort of a giant closet. It hadn't been there before lunch, but it made it curious. The closet was wrapped up in heavy chains and locked with a great padlock. Mac moved closer. Behind the chains, he could see double doors with a steel bar clamped across them. Several signs were taped to the doors. Keep back! Do not open doors! Danger! Call the fire department if you smell something unusual. Mac sniffed, but all he could smell was chicken fingers. Behind the chains were the steel bars. Each door had its own lock. He could see two keyholes, one red and the other green. He put on the catcher's mask just to be safe and tried to open one door, then the other, but they wouldn't budge. He tried to peer through the keyholes, but they were too tiny. He knocked on one of the doors. It seemed made of thick wood. Anyone in there? He called. There was no answer. He knocked again and then pressed the ear against the side of the closet. Still nothing. What's that? Asked Dee Dee, coming up the stairs. Max shrugged. Dee Dee read the signs aloud. Keep back. Do not open doors. Danger. She tried one of the doors. I think it's locked, said Mac. More kids made up to the stairs. Each one stopped at the closet, read the signs, and then tried to open the doors. Terrence kicked the doors. Jason rattled the chains. Look! It's one wrong chain, he determined, wrapped around 4 times. What do you think is inside? Asked Leslie. Snakes, said Paul. He was afraid of snakes. Spiders, said Rodney. She was afraid of spiders. Monsters, said Allison. She loved monsters. What if it's Mrs. Gorth? Gasped Calvin. Everybody shuddered. Mrs. Gorth was the worst teacher they'd ever had. Give me a boot, said Max. Jenny cupped her hands, and Max stepped up, first onto Jenny's hands, then onto the steel bar. He gripped the top edge of the closet and tried to shimmy up. Get away from there, shouted Mrs. Jules, all of you. She had returned from the teacher's lounge only to see children hanging all over the closet like monkeys. Mac, get down! Now! Mac tried to hop down, but his foot got tangled in the chains, and he fell onto his back. Ooh, I think I broke my tailbone, he complained. You're lucky that's all you broke, said Mrs. Jules. What's inside? Asked Terence. Never you mind, said Mrs. Jules. Don't you children know the meaning of danger? You're not to go anywhere near my closet. Don't look at it. Don't even think about it. It's not there. But I can see it, said Max, still lying on the floor. It's not there, Mrs. Jules insisted. But no ifs, no ands, or buts, said Mrs. Jules. Everyone shuffled inside the classroom. Mac was still on the floor. He stood up and adjusted his catcher's mask, which had become cocked when he fell. He took one last look at the closet that wasn't there, then walked into the classroom, more curious than ever.